So in the past couple of days, President DJT has officially gotten military boots on DC streets. That's right. We got real life militia in DC. And I'm here for it. Now, fun little fact about Washington, D.C. crime is this. D.C. has 5 times the national average when it comes to both petty as well as violent crimes. Much of this has gone unchecked and unregulated due to liberal/democratic policies that look to incentivize crime by giving slaps on the wrist to those who are violating the people around them. You know, the kids trying to make their way to school, parents trying to make their way to the job, and pray to God make their way back home so they can be with their kids after school, that sort of thing. Yeah, DJT is the first president who, well, at least in quite a while, who's actually looking to do something about that. And what does he get? Gets a whole bunch of crying, pandering, and virtue signaling. Oh, this is racism. If you claim this to be racism, that sounds like an admission of criminality. For all the black folks who've come out talking about how they don't want this, especially those who are in DC most affected by the crime, you are looking real guilty right now. Nobody said he was coming for black folks, but damn it, if the shoe fits.
Oh, yeah. This is something we definitely need to talk about today. Welcome to the platform, by the way. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Rogan. This is the ThisBahamianGyal podcast. On my platform, I do social commentary and reaction videos. I encourage my audience to have private conversations in public. 2 things, just quick housekeeping. I know in my previous video, I said that I was going to do a part 2 to that video. That is still coming, but I wanted to weigh in on this topic first. And I'm not going to be doing any of the reaction to your comments in this video. I'll save that for the next video. Those of you who've been watching my videos for a while, I said, I love that song from Bob Marley, "Who the cap fits, let them wear it." And he's right. If the shoe fits, you're going to wear it because they did not make it a racial thing. They said they were targeting crime. And the fact that black folks are like, well, you're coming for us. Well, that says, what does that say to you? So what you're saying is that black people are the ones who are committing crime. So don't get upset when people say black people are committing crime. Don't get upset when people say black people are committing all the crimes. And you say, oh, it's not just black people, because why are you even speaking out about this? We're going to do a little deep dive today on this story here. I'm just looking at this video that I'm about to play next. But obviously, the feds have taken control of the DC Metropolitan Police, and a lot of Washingtonians are upset about that. I've gotten quite a number of you reaching out to me through DM, through email, in the comment section, asking me if I was going to weigh in on this. And the reason they're asking if I'm going to weigh in on this, guys, for those of you who are new around here, I live in Washington, D.C. I've lived here for 5 years, almost 6 years. So this is home. This is home. And if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I've spoken about the crime situation a number of times. So let me just jump right up and say from the outset that I actually support this. I support this. There are a few things I want to say. I think Trump is being a bit hyperbolic when he says that it's a war zone in DC. I would not say it's a war zone. When I think war zone, and I want you all to just hear me out here, okay? When I think war zone, I'm literally thinking, I'm not thinking like Iraq, not thinking like that, but I'm thinking when I walk outside my door, gunshots are ringing out every minute of the day when I hear war zone, okay? It's not that. I don't find it to be that in DC. But the crime is out of control as far as I'm concerned, okay? When I first moved to DC, I lived in the trenches. I know a lot of you think I'm so prissy and like bawling or something like that, but I lived in the trenches. And so hearing gunshots was the norm. I remember being in my apartment building, coming out of my apartment to go to my car and opening my front door. And I saw a SWAT team in there, and a police officer did this to me. So I can get out of the building because they were going to get someone. Okay. And I've seen a lot of criminality around me. In DC, I don't live in the trenches anymore, but I still see a lot of criminality. when I walk outside of my home, and I live in a much, much better area now, I'm still seeing my neighbors' cars being broken into. I had to stop watching the news and listening to the radio in the morning, the radio news, because it was giving me such severe anxiety. Every single day, something was going on in DC, to the point that I had friends back home who would be, and listen, Nassau is shoot 'em upville too, where I'm from. That's the wild, wild west as well. But they would be like, everything okay in DC? Because I'm always hearing about this shooting and that shooting and this carjacking and that armed robbery. And I'm like, yeah, honestly, that's the way it is. And I see a lot of it spreading into Northern Virginia as well. There's a reason why a lot of these companies like Target, and I've spoken about this as well on my platform, are closing up out of certain areas, shutting down. Walmart is shutting down in certain areas. Or if they do remain, they have increased security and they have plexiglass around everything that you would possibly need, from Tide Pods to Gain to deodorant to soap to toothpaste. Everything is locked up, like I say, behind plexiglass, which I always feel like an animal in the zoo having to press a button just to call someone to come and get soap out of the plexiglass just to give to me. Okay. So yes, Trump is being a bit hyperbolic when he says it's a war zone, but I think there are a lot of Democrats who are downplaying this a lot and not really being honest about the state of affairs. We keep getting these reports that people saying, oh, well, crime is down. And then we'll have some other expert. And I'm going to see if I could find, oh gosh, his name escapes me. There was a gentleman, I don't know if it's a think tank or Just Facts. It's called, the organization is called Just Facts. Oh gosh, if I can remember his name, I'll put it on the screen and I'll put it in this video. But he was just talking about how they flub the numbers, what they do to manipulate the numbers so that the crime seems as if it's going down. I can tell you that listening to that interview, I understood exactly where that gentleman was coming from. Because I've seen so many police officers talking about this, having to reclassify crimes. And some people just don't even report crimes here in DC. I've called 911 on numerous occasions. If you get through, you make a report if possible. I'm not even kidding. I remember doing a video a year or so ago and I talked about calling 911, and luckily I got through when a gentleman, well, I shouldn't even call him a gentleman, a man was pulling his girlfriend or whoever this woman was into like 5 lanes of highway traffic and like pulled her top off and everything, like they were fighting, and a baby was nearby, or he was holding the baby. And I think that was probably the first time ever that I'd called 911 and they answered, and they said that a bunch of other people were reporting the same thing happening. But there have been times when I've called 911 and it rings forever. And they will tell you, don't hang up. I'll just hang up. And then I don't know how it is in your city, but when you hang up here, the phone, it'll just keep calling you back several times. Several times. And it's just like, it's just a waste of my time. It's just pointless because you're holding on for so long. So when I hear police say a lot of things are underreported or unreported, I 100% agree with that. And I'm going to get into a little personal story later on. Hopefully I remember. I didn't make any notes or anything like that. But I want to read something because I was quite surprised to see this article on MSNBC, which, is very, very liberal. And the headline says, Trump's DC takeover is extreme, but crime concerns aren't unfounded. And I really appreciated that headline. I really, really appreciated that headline. The subhead says, though crime is down in Washington, the data shows a real gap between the statistics and how unsafe many citizens, especially Black women, feel. And let me just read a little bit of this, and then I'm just going to go in and giving my reaction, and I'll play some videos as well. So I really want you to stay with this video. Don't skip through. Don't click off. Let's really have this conversation because it's very easy to just say you hate Donald Trump. I have my issues with the man myself, okay? But I've always maintained on this channel that if he does something that I think is beneficial or it's good, I'm going to give him his props. And I have zero issue with what's going on now. I know a lot of Washingtonians hate what's happening. We'll talk about that. But let me read this article here from MSNBC. It says, if Democrats want a governing majority again, they must meet voters where they are, not where they wish they were. That means facing hard truths like the one playing out in our nation's capital. Even as crime rates fall, many Washingtonians do not feel safe walking through Union Station, shopping on U Street, or living in Navy Yard. Navy Yard is a big one. And Navy Yard is supposed to be like a nice area, let me tell you. But people are always reporting something happening there. That's me adding in here. The article continues, folks are tired of seeing deodorant. I forgot about this in the article. Folks are tired of seeing deodorant locked up behind plexiglass at CVS. They're frustrated at finding their car windows smashed and seeing a teenager speed off on a rented e-bike. To be clear, Trump's moves to take over the Metropolitan Police Department and activate the DC National Guard are unnecessary, wrong, and unwarranted. I happen to disagree. But if officials in the district don't do something fast, they may give the president and Congress more reason to try to take over, even more than they already have. The reason why I say I disagree with MSNBC saying it's unnecessary, wrong, and unwarranted is because if the DC Metropolitan Police were doing its job effectively, and let me just say, a lot of police officers' hands are tied. A lot of their hands are tied. A lot of police officers are speaking out in the comments section and saying they're happy that this is happening because their hands are tied. They're frustrated seeing people who they arrest or want to arrest just kind of getting a slap on the wrist and going by the wayside. Okay? So they're sick of this as well. And if they cannot get a grip on things, it's not fair for the people who are living here, peaceful, law-abiding citizens and residents, to feel as if they're held hostage in their own city by people who are criminals. Okay? There are certain areas I just will not drive through. And this happens in many major cities. There are certain areas of DC where when I'm going through, I'm rolling up the windows because you just never know. But I don't have an issue. Me, personally, I don't have an issue with it. And I keep seeing folks say, where's this crime? I mean, I literally saw people online saying, what's this crime that he's talking about? Oh, he's running out. And like I said, he was hyperbolic when he said it's a war zone. But just because I think he's hyperbolic doesn't mean he's wrong about how bad crime is in the city. And my question is always for those people who are like, oh, crime is not a big deal and we have this under control, is where do you live? Talk to folks in Southeast DC. So we have people getting shot up in Northwest. In Northwest, it's like the good quadrant. So where do you live where it's just so safe? And maybe this is true for them because they're in an area that is heavily policed, that is probably more gated and more secure. So they don't feel crime the way that other people do. Now, as it relates to the National Guard, I would like to have them not just in tourist areas, but come Southeast DC and Northeast DC. I would love to see them more spread out and really tackling crime. And I think they might be moving into that area. But right now, they're just more in the tourist areas. And there's no reason why the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., should be as crime-ridden as it is. You have to remember, you have millions of tourists who are coming here to D.C. to see the monuments. This is historic. This is a historical place, okay? They're coming to see the White House. It's almost the equivalent of going to Paris and seeing the Champs-Élysées or the Eiffel Tower. They want to see the White House. And they don't want to be harassed. They don't want to feel unsafe walking around. They don't want to be harassed by the homeless element that's out there. Sometimes that happens. And we'll talk about the homeless element as well, because a lot of people are upset about Trump having these encampments removed. Again, I have zero issue with that. So let me play this next video. And this is another content creator on TikTok who says he's a police officer. And he's talking about, this is the headline, Metropolitan Police manipulated crime stats to protect DC mayor, according to police union. So take a listen to this video.
So it appears the police union has blown the whistle on the Metropolitan Police Department's crime data. Looks like somebody's cooking the books, or should I say, the crime stats. I mean, could this be why the federal government is taking control of law enforcement in the metropolitan area of Washington, D.C.? So according to Greg Pemberton, chairman of the DC Police Union, he alleges that the Metropolitan Police Department has been underreporting and under-investigating serious criminal offenses to make the crime stats look better than what they are. Mr. Pemberton also alleges that Metropolitan Police Department supervisors are instructing lower level officers to downgrade crimes such as shootings, stabbings, and carjackings to lesser category crimes. He states that this is in order to create an illusion that violent crimes are going down. Could that be why the left is saying crime is down in DC? Yeah, I see why crime is down. It's because they're cooking the books. I mean, let's be honest. I'm a law enforcement officer, and I will tell you that this type of behavior is going on in every major city police department, especially in Democrat-ran cities. It's political. I mean, you ever wondered why your politicians come on the screen and say crime is down, yet the evidence speaks for itself? Well, that's why. And it's all coming to an end. Thanks to Donald Trump.
I don't know. He says he's a law enforcement official or officer. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know anybody's going to come on and just lie about that. But if he is, it's very telling for him to be saying that. Like I said, if this situation were under control and DC didn't have the issues that it had, I would definitely be out here screaming like, we don't need any National Guard here. We don't. But the reality is much different. Like I said, I got to the point where I just stopped tuning into the news because it was giving me such severe anxiety just hearing about people being shot, hearing about armed robberies, metro workers being, I remember a couple of years ago, a metro worker was killed. It was just so incredibly sad. And it's like these things just blow over so quickly. And it's kind of hard to reconcile not having extra help when it seems like it's out of control. We've had, I remember this doctor in Northwest was carjacked and killed. If I'm not mistaken, it was in Northwest, and I'll definitely inject it in here if I can remember his name. But there are certain things that just kind of shake you. As it relates to the encampments, again, a lot of folks pissed off because they're like, why would you do this to people who have nothing? I do feel for the individuals who are homeless, especially watching everything that they own just be decimated. But the reality is, you need to blame the people who allowed the proliferation of these encampments. They didn't just show up overnight. When the first one started to show up, when the first homeless person erected their tent, there should have been officials who were monitoring and said, no, you cannot stay here, and you get them up out of there. It is insane to me. I remember several years ago going to the White House and being so excited. And I was just disgusted to see tent after tent after tent of homeless people there. And let me tell you something, it's very unsanitary. You can smell it. I certainly would not, as a tourist, I wouldn't do it even as a citizen living here, go down there in the evening. I wouldn't feel safe. This is the White House. Imagine having encampments in the front of Buckingham Palace. This is ridiculous. So blame the people who allowed this to get out of control. I am shocked, I suppose, to just see so many people who are angry that they're now seeking to clean it up. Like, you should want this cleaned up. DC has gotten to the place where housing is just not affordable. I hear so many of my friends, one of my friends in particular is looking to relocate, and it's like, it's so hard to find housing that is stable and affordable. And if it's affordable, that is still in a good condition, not in the trenches. You have some people who are making $80K living in the trenches because it's like they don't want to live paycheck to paycheck just to live in a nice place. They want to at least have some extra money. And so they choose to live in a place that is not that great just because that's more affordable, that would allow them to save. And it's terrible. The reason why we have so many homeless people, they're not getting jobs, but there's a lack of affordable housing. And so, yes, I do sympathize with the individuals who have nothing already, and the little bit that they have gotten is being decimated before their eyes. I do sympathize with that. But what do? Do we just allow them to just stay? That's unhealthy. It's unsanitary. It's unsightly. So I do support them being removed from these areas. The question is, where do they then go? I think it was reported that if they move voluntarily, that the government would step in and assist them. I hope that is the case, because you can't just obliterate someone's house, their house, everything that they have and just say, oh, well, you don't live here anymore. You already don't have anything. So where do you go? And for the individuals who love to talk about or be judgmental towards others because they say, no, I don't want this in my area. I met several people from California last year. It was almost like, I was like, what is going on in California? Everybody is moving to the DMV area. And I remember talking to a lady because I said, listen, you're like the 8th person, this is no exaggeration, I've met today who said that they're from California. This is crazy. Like, what is it? Like, what are you coming here for school? And this lady told me, I left California because it got out of control. And the final straw for me, these are her words, was when she said she had a home that was expensive, that she paid a lot of money for. And there were homeless people right across the street from her. And she could not do anything about it. Calling the law, they would not come. They said there's nothing that they can do. So she's like, I'm paying all my money for my home and this is what's happening. And I know that it's only going to grow. Nobody wants to deal with that. So for the folks who are talking about, oh, just let these people live, they already don't have anything. Are they in your area? And now that they're being removed from Georgetown, now that they're being removed from like the White House area and all these other areas where it's like tent city, they're going to be, unless they get assistance from the government, they could be possibly coming into your area. And we'll see if you have that same mindset. I live in a nice area and I came out of my house a few weeks ago and I saw the first tent across the street. Major city, major area across the street. And then I saw another one. And this is how it grows. And nobody was removing these people from the area. That's not safe. I used to be able to walk to a restaurant to get food in the night. I used to feel very comfortable, very safe on my street going to go get food. I don't do that anymore. So all these folks who are talking, just post your address and let folks know that they're welcome in your area and see how that works out. The government needs to do something to make housing way more affordable so that people don't have to rely on just sleeping on the streets just to get by. I feel for these folks. I do. But I understand both sides of it. And I think until it comes into your neighborhood and you're dealing with it and you see it and you get scared, then you'll understand. So again, I do support Trump for doing what he is doing. I wish it didn't come to that. I wish we didn't have to have any federal interference. But DC Metropolitan Police is not doing a good job. It's not doing a good job. On a personal note, other than calling 911, I had never had any reason to go to the police to report anything, that sort of thing, until probably a month and a half ago. I had never been in a police station. And I didn't even know where a police station was. I literally had to Google where a police station was in DC. And I remember going into a DC Metropolitan Police Station to report something. Nothing major, but nothing minor in my mind either. And the police officer looked me in my very real face and told me, our job is not to prevent crime. Your job is not to prevent crime. I had a back and forth, because y'all know I'm mouthy. So I had a back and forth, not disrespectful, I said, so let me ask you something. And I could tell he was getting irritated. I said, if I had information that someone was going to blow up a certain portion of DC and I walked into this station to tell you that, you wouldn't take my statement? And I was in that station for about 30 minutes going back and forth with this man. And then I said, okay. And I went inside my car and I said, wow, here I am trying to report something. They're not taking me seriously. They tell me they're not in the crime prevention business. And I was like, you know what? I'm going home. And then something told me to go to another police station. So I did. And when I spoke to the police officer, it was a woman this time, and she said, I'll take a statement. And then she explained some things to me. She said, he should have taken your statement. I said, yeah, he didn't. And then she says to me, but he's right, though. We're not in the crime prevention business. You police officers who are watching, please drop this down. I know that's not correct. Every police station I've ever been involved with in different countries always said, we're here to solve crime, but we're also in the crime prevention because we don't even want it to escalate to a crime. This is news to me, and this is new to me. This is news, and it's new to me here in DC. And what's funny is even after she took that statement, I remember thinking to myself, and she was nice. I remember thinking, these are the same police officers who didn't want to help me, who, if something happened and they wanted my statement, I wouldn't give it to them because I'm not in the helping you with your investigation business, right? When you want people to cooperate with you and you want to inspire confidence with your community, you have to listen to them. And you have to seek to help them and not just be like, oh, you're just a nuisance, get out of here. Because you don't know who is walking into the station with some valuable information that could have helped you solve a crime. So that turned me off massively. So that's my own little rant for today. But again, like I said, if DC police were handling business, there would be no need for this intervention. And I know a lot of people aren't going to listen to anything that I said because they're just going to get caught up in politics and the fact that they hate Donald Trump. But I am telling you, there are a lot of native Washingtonians, there are a lot of transplants who've been living here for years who welcome this action. And I think many of you have seen them across social media. Many of them have been profiled here on YouTube as well. And it seems to be split. I don't know how it's split. I don't know people's backgrounds or anything like that. But all I can assume is that they live in a really comfortable area, living a comfortable life where when they call the police comes immediately. Because for a lot of people, that is not the reality, okay? And I do believe very strongly that a lot of things are not being reported. So again, I was happy to see that MSNBC article, and I will let me bookmark this right now, as a matter of fact. And you can definitely, you can read it for yourself. Let me read this thing from the Washington Post recently that I saw that also said that 50% of DC residents and an overwhelming majority of DC residents are Democrats. We know this, but they view crime as an extremely serious or very serious problem, noting stark divides along lines of race and income. Now, see, I just saw that piece there. I'd seen a Washington Post article, but I just saw that piece. And it's so funny because I said, I just seem so split. And I think that's exactly what it is. I think that it's definitely divided among race and income. It says Black residents and lower income residents were significantly more worried about crime than white residents and those with higher incomes, the Post found in May, as they were last year. Black women are among the most concerned, with 65% saying crime is a very or extremely serious issue compared with 82% who said the same last year. And as a Black woman living in the district, I can confirm that this is 100% true. And like I said, that incident when I just walked into a police station wanting to report something and not being taken seriously, yeah, it definitely rings true for me. What else did I have to say? Oh, let me play this video really quickly. I think there was a gentleman who was sort of doing this was with the encampments being removed in DC. Hold on, let's just play this real quick. This is crazy. So that was somebody there on K Street in DC. And it looks like people are inside those tents being pulled out. It is a sad sight to see. Again, I do have a heart for people. And I have probably even a bigger heart for people who are homeless. But again, like I said, I think we need to also really think about how it got to this point. And again, it's a lot of folks who just cannot afford the housing, who are jobless. And I think the government definitely needs to do a better job at helping these people. We find money for so many other things. And when it comes to people who are homeless, some of them, it's not so easy to just walk into a homeless shelter. A lot of them are full. A lot of them don't take, men. A lot of them don't take it's like focused for women and children. And so you have to meet certain criteria as well. And a lot of them just don't have the space. So when you've destroyed the one piece of shelter what somebody has, where do they go? You're displacing people. But again, remember what I said. They said if you were willing to leave, they would help. But how soon would that help come? That's another question. You need to have things, you being the government, lined up, locked loaded, ready to go to help people. Like, you got to move from here, and here, take this form to so and so, and they'll get you some housing, they'll get you some shelter or something like that. But you can't just pull them out and then that's the end of it. But for the people who are, coming online with their faux outrage and their virtue signaling, it bothers me, because not a one of them is going to say, oh, let me open up my house or my backyard or my anything for you to come in. And it's okay for them to, cry foul and say, oh, this is terrible because it's not in their area. When people start being affected is when they really feel things. And I always go back to Greg Abbott and Texas. And I remember when Texas was having, and they still do, having such, big issue with people crossing over the border, and, their policing, it was like stretching their resources to the limit. A lot of people weren't paying attention. Oh, it's all the way in Texas. Texas is big. They can accommodate and, all these folks. They don't care. And the minute they started coming into Baltimore and Washington, D.C. and all these other cities, then it's like, hold on now. And New York, hold on now. Y'all got to go. We cannot support you. You got to go. So all I'm saying is I can feel for people, but I also believe very strongly in law and order. And to all the people who are pissed off about more police presence and protesting, I wish you had the same energy when we have people shooting each other and killing children and killing metro workers in this city. I'd love to see your protests for that. Okay? Because it's very easy to just jump up because you hate this man, being Donald Trump, just to protest. But I want to see you protesting when anybody is shot. If you see crime is out of control. I'm not afraid of police. I may not have had a great interaction when I went to make a report, but I don't hate police. I'm always, thankful that they're there, because when things pop off, who am I going to call? Am I going to call like the criminal? Someone robs me, I'm going to call the criminal? No, I'm going to call police. So I don't know why people are so upset. 3 types of people would be very upset with more police presence. Criminals, criminal sympathizers, and individuals who have had horrible interactions with police. And the latter doesn't have to be criminals or criminally minded or anything like that. They could just have had horrible interactions with police. And I certainly would understand that. But me, I don't feel anything when I'm walking down the street other than safety. I feel more safe when I see police are just there. So anyway, this was a very long video. And that's why I'm not, going to go any further than this. But drop your comments down below. If you're not going to leave a productive comment, please don't even bother. Please do not bother. I feel, I've said this before, privileged that I've been able to attract a certain type of element and audience to my platform. Individuals who may disagree, but they're able to disagree civilly. If you're just going to come on here and rant and rave, I don't want to hear it. I really don't. Be productive in your criticisms. Be productive. And I especially want to hear from Washingtonians. I don't need to hear from somebody in Seattle unless you live here and you know what it's like here. As a matter of fact, I think that, if this works out in DC, they need to take it to other cities. Memphis, Baltimore. They need to take it to all these places where it's just, they're wilding out. So let me hear from the people, the Washingtonians who are here. If it's not been your experience, I would be happy and welcome you telling me what area you live in if you feel comfortable to do so. Tell me where you live if you feel comfortable doing that. I want to hear from the Washingtonians. I want to hear from police officers. I want to hear from the police officers here in DC. What do you think? Y'all are anonymous online. Tell me what you think. Are you grateful for the help? What are your thoughts about that? All right. Anyway, drop your comments down below. You can follow me on Instagram at ThisBahamianGyal, on my blog at ThisBahamianGyal.com, on TikTok, ThisBahamianGyal TBG. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, send it. It's very long. I'm not going to break it up. I'm just going to leave it as is. Again, you can follow me on my podcast. I have a separate podcast channel here on YouTube as well. I'll put it on the screen. But if you are listening to this podcast and you want to see the video version, please go to youtube.com/ThisBahamianGyal. And if you are somebody who's like, I like to listen to This Bahamian Gyal on the go when I'm, listening to my earbuds, or how my airing is, or, when I'm jogging or I'm in my car on a long drive, this would be a really good episode for a long drive. Then please go to Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else that you get your podcasts. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.